What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikaPikaPaPa, and look at that awesome freaking cardboard up there. These are the big chase cards in Sun and Moon. Everybody wants to have them in their collection. They're going for ridiculous prices on eBay right now, but guess what? We're not going to be talking about any of them. So last week on Sunday, we did a video where we looked at the chase card versus booster box. The whole thing we were trying to decide is, hey, what's the better play from a price appreciation standpoint? Should I just buy the chase card at month 4, or should I just buy the sealed booster box a couple months in as well? And we did this whole data analysis, and the results were absolutely fascinating. We looked at Sword and Shield sets that were at least 16 months old, and we stopped at Vivid Voltage. And what I said was, hey, listen, if you guys enjoy this content, if you want to see me dig a little deeper and go into either Sun and Moon or further back into Sword and Shield or even in XY, drop some comments, give me some thumbs up. That'll let me know that you find value in it, and I will do Sun and Moon. And guess what? You guys answered the bell big time. So before I even get into this, I'm going to say the same thing. If you guys want me to go into XY, if you guys want me to go into black and white, if you guys want me to go in the beginning of Sword and Shield, whatever, I'm happy to do it. Show me that you want it happening by dropping some thumbs up, by giving me some comments, and hey, if you haven't hit the subscribe button yet and you love this kind of stuff, hit that subscribe button. I've got an amazing community that we're building here, and we'd love to have you be a part of it. Now, with that being said, what are we going to look at today? You know I like to frame everything up before we get into it. So we're going to be looking at the final 6 sets in Sun and Moon. Now, I struggled to find raw value on cards going back that far, but what I was able to find definitively was very accurate PSA 10 sales data on these cards. So we're going to be looking at PSA 10 data. Now, obviously the prices are going to be higher than the raw cards, but I will tell you this, PSA 10s, PSA 9s, and raw cards, they almost always move in lockstep, right? One might lag the other, but at the end of the day, they always come into some form of directional similarities. If the raw card is going up, usually the PSA 10 card is going up. So I feel very good about using PSA 10 card data for this one. And we're going to be assuming that the booster boxes were purchased at MSRP minus 20%. We don't know the actuals back then. I don't want anybody to say, well, I was buying booster boxes of, Team Up for $14.99 at my local Walmart. That doesn't matter, right? We're going to use this for comparison. We're going to say booster box MSRP minus 20%. That is going to be our starting point for booster box price. And then the chase cards then are what we're going to be looking at. One of the most fascinating things to me in this process was what chase cards back then, so at the launch of the set, what was the big chase card? How many of them are still the chase card today? Super cool stuff, and I can't wait to get to the final slide because it's really, really cool. And then as always, we use rate of return. Whenever we're looking at these sets, remember some of these sets were launched 6, 12, 18 months apart, so you can't just go, it went from $50 to $100, so that's 100% gain. You have to add time in there, and so rate of return is a function, which is a function of price appreciation and time elapsed. So that allows us to look at all these and compare apples to apples. So with that being said, we're going to jump into the very first set right now. Now, Cosmic Eclipse, right? You had this Charizard tag team rainbow card that came out, and this was the big chase card when it came out. The PSA 10s at launch were going for up to $300. There were even a couple that sold in the $400 range. Then it started to come down just a little bit, and then it went up, 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 up. So at 6 months, at month 6, you were able to buy this card at $270. Now, I will say it had an all-time high of $605 and an all-time low of $145. Now you can buy this in a PSA 10 for about $216. Now if you were to buy this at the 6-month price of $270, right now you're holding it, it's going for about $216, right? So you're looking at a negative 6.8% rate of return on this chase card. However, I will say this is no longer the chase card in Cosmic Eclipse. This card is actually ranked number 8 in terms of price for Cosmic Eclipse. There are 7 other cards in Cosmic Eclipse right now that are more valuable than this freaking awesome looking Charizard. Now, I will say this, we have seen time and time again in these recent videos that we've been doing that Charizard cards, irregardless of set or age or layout, is it an alt art, is it a rainbow, is it just a really cool card? We've been seeing a lot of Charizard price depreciation. So that is something to take note of. Obsidian Flames is coming out. I said how much I love that Charizard card. I said how much I was hoping that could buoy the set and make it a great one. But we will have to see because Charizard sure has been getting kicked in the tail as of late. Now, if you look at the booster box price, again, we're going to assume you bought it at 20% off MSRP because most of us don't pay MSRP for booster boxes. So let's assume you bought it for $115. That booster box is now right at $700, $701. That gives you an insane rate of return of 63.7%. So in this case, the booster box absolutely smashes the single card. And again, really fascinating that the big chase card out of the gate is all the way down to number 8. Now, let's look at this next set. Unified Minds, another really cool chase card, another big name name, like you got a tag team with Mewtwo and Mew, which is absolutely awesome. At launch, the PSA 10s were going for $350. Then you see this little bit of a bowl, right? It falls real hard, and then it comes right back up. You're going to see this pattern again here in just a minute. So at the 6-month price point, it was $130. Again, just like the one we just saw, this had an all-time high right in the $600 range, all-time high of $612, all-time low of $108. The current price right now is $350. So if you were able to buy it at month 6 in a PSA 10 at $130, now it's at $350. That's a 33.6% rate of return, which is nothing to shake a fist at. That is absolutely phenomenal. Then you look at the booster boxes for Unified Minds. Again, if you were able to buy it 20% off of MSRP at $115, now it is going for $474. Not even close to the biggest box in the Sun and Moon era, but that is still a whopping 43.6% rate of return, which beats this chase card. Now, the thing is, the Mewtwo and Mew tag team, it has been able to hold its water a little bit. It's not number 1, but it is holding strong at number 2, so that just goes to show you that, hey, just because in Cosmic Eclipse it dropped all the way down to 8, this one's holding kind of strong at number 2, but it's very fascinating that it is not number 1. So the next set that we're looking at right here, Unbroken Bonds, another absolute awesome rainbow tag team, has the fire lizard on it, and it came out at $780, and everybody was all over this. And then that bowl pattern that I just talked about, right? You see it absolutely drop off a cliff. At 6 months, it was all the way down to $130. Now, this has a higher all-time high at $800 and a higher all-time low at $220. And the interesting thing is when you see it go through this bowl pattern, it does kind of level off, and now it's come back down. But again, it is up to $302. So if you had pulled the trigger on month 6 and said, okay, no matter what the price is, I'm buying this at month 6, you bought it for $130, it's now $302. That gives you a 25.8% rate of return. Again, a great rate of return. However, we got to look at the sealed product, and if you bought it at 20% off MSRP for $115, it's now $481, giving you a 41% annualized rate of return. Again, just an absolute ludicrous number. Sealed product has won yet again. Currently, this card is ranked number 2 in Unbroken Bonds. Again, the full art trainers are doing really well in this space. We see a lot of other alternate cards that are jumping up here, but still this card is holding really strong at number 2. So again, not a big fall, not crazy, but again, it is not number 1. It did not retain that number 1 spot. Now we're going to look at Team Up, the sealed product of the decade, right? Team Up, its price appreciation has just been absolutely insane. So then you look at this Pikachu and Zekrom tag team rainbow card that came out at launch. You could buy a PSA 10 for a measly $135. And then at 6 months, it was actually up in price versus the other ones that we've seen. At 6 months, this was up to $142. Then it climbed. It reached that all-time high of $560. And remember, the pandemic caused a lot of these price surges and a lot of these price appreciation. So there's a reason why all of this went up, right? The Pokemon market got a little silly for a while, but it went all the way up to $560. It was at an all-time low at one point of $85. Absolutely awesome price point if you could have got in. But if you had held your water and said, you know what, no matter what, I am buying the PSA 10 of the chase card of Team Up at month number 6, you would have paid $142 for this card. Current price right now is $251, giving you a 15.7 rate of return. Very interesting. One of the lower rates of returns that we're going to see throughout this exercise. And again, another card that has really tumbled from the top, from number 1 all the way down to number 8 in the tag team set as we sit today. Now, the booster box, I don't need to tell you anything that you don't know. Obviously, that is the play in this space. Obviously, the tag team booster box is something we all wish we had a time machine and we could go back and buy a couple sealed cases of. But if you had bought this at $115, now it's at $1,447 for a rate of return of 77%, which is absolutely amazing. You won't find a better rate of return than that pretty much anywhere right now. So awesome info here on Team Up. Then we're getting into Sun and Moon Lost Thunder, and here's where we saw a really interesting price movement for this chase card. So you got the Lugia right here, and at launch it was a PSA 10 at $135. Not a lot of love for this. Even at month number 6, this was all the way down to $75. Then we went through the pandemic where everybody was piling in at that one point into the Pokemon space. And this got as high as $1,540. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, this tracks actual eBay sales. So there were multiple sales. There were 3 different sales at that $1,500 price point, which is crazy. And then you'll see a couple months later, you see this big undulation up again. There was another sale that was up in the $1,300. So really strong prices for this. I mean, during the pandemic, people were paying more for this than they were for any of the other cards that we've looked at up until this point. Then you see it come back down as one would expect, but even coming back down, I mean, the most recent sales are still over $600. Now, for me, it's interesting because this wasn't a big chase card out of the gate. The data shows us, right? Like there wasn't a lot of love for it. Not a lot of people were into it. Even 6 months in, it was only at $75. It took a pandemic for this to go all the way up, but it has maintained a lot of its value. I mean, $668 is nothing to shake a fist at. That's amazing. So that gives you a rate of return of 67.2%. And I mean, that again, next to the team up booster boxes, that's as high as we're going to see throughout this whole exercise. Now, this is the one where if you look at the booster box, if you had bought it at 20% off MSRP for $115, the booster box now is going for $443, giving you a 33.5% annualized rate of return. Again, a fantastic rate of return, but it doesn't hold a flame to 67.2. This is the only card that we're going to see that ran the wire to wire. It started off at number one. It still is at number one. This was a really interesting card for me to look at, and I did a ton of work looking at this on the background. I was just fascinated by the story of this card. Now, next one right here, Celestial Storm. Here it is, Rayquaza. Everybody loves Rayquaza. Like I keep talking about how it's having this big surge in momentum right now. And if you had bought this at launch, you would have paid $125 for a PSA 10. If you had waited 6 months and you had purchased this and a PSA 10, you would cost you $105. Again, actual eBay sales here. All-time high of 740, all-time low of 72. Currently right now, it is at $293 in a PSA 10 case, giving you a annualized rate of return of 26.4%. Again, a great rate of return until you compare it to the sealed product. If you had bought this at $115, Celestial Storm is now going for $590 a booster box for a rate of return of 39.5%. So what does this all mean? What does it all look like? Listen, I know that we go through it set by set. I wanted to include this graph up here so you can see what all of them look like in comparison. Only one between single and booster box was negative, and that was the Cosmic Eclipse Charizard chase card, right? Everything else was positive, and everything else was really, really strong from a rate of return perspective. I'm going to tell you right now, any of these numbers, any investor would be very, very happy. Even on the low end, where one is 15.7%, anybody would be happy with that. Now, you will also see the darker green versus the lighter green. The darker green is the category that won, and guess what? Booster boxes absolutely threw down. Booster boxes were the hands-down winner in this. Now, as I said, only one card actually ended up going wire to wire, and that was that Lugia that we talked about. 3 cards held their water pretty well, like they still ended up at number 2, but 2 of the cards did tumble to number 8, which was very fascinating to me. Now, as we already said, booster boxes won 5 of the 6, and the only one that really saw this divergent trend was Lost Thunder, and that was interesting to me. I felt like that was the weakest chase card out of all of the sets that we looked at, yet that was the one where the chase card gave the biggest rate of return. Now, I will say this, the other thing that I noticed when I was looking at these price charts, we talked about how the pandemic, everybody piled in and the prices went way up, and then they've started to come down. It looks to me, at least with the recent data over the last couple months, things are starting to normalize and flatten out a little bit. Now, that doesn't mean we're at the bottom, doesn't mean we're anywhere close to the bottom, doesn't mean we don't have a lot more room to fall, but I will say that, it seems like things are starting to normalize, or at least not depreciating at the rate that they were before. So, the interesting thing to me, my takeaway from this was, we talk a lot about alt arts. A lot of people out there are talking about alt arts and how they're not doing well and yada, yada, yada. Well, guess what? Alt arts are the number one chase cards in a lot of their sets right now. If they follow the same pattern as Sun and Moon did, a lot of these alt arts that are number one right now, they won't be number one in the future. They're going to get lapped. They're going to get passed by somebody. They could end up at number 2. They could run the wire and be number 1. They could fall down as number 8. Again, a lot of these cards, when they launched, they were the alt arts of the generation, right? Tag teams and rainbows and secret rares. And just like we talk about how hard it is to pull alt arts now and how awesome and beautiful they are, everybody was saying the same things about those rainbow secret tag team cards back in the day too. So just some perspective when we see alt art prices coming down, who knows where they're going to end up in the future? Who knows what Sword and Shield is going to do what Sun and Moon did? The past doesn't repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. So I hope that this was awesome information for you guys. I hope this is another tool in your tool belt when you all are out there playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. I hope that you keep this top of mind and it helps you. And as I said before, if you want me to dig deeper like this into more eras and more sets, I'm happy to do it. Hit a thumbs up button, drop a comment down below, and if you made it this far and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, what the heck are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. I hope you guys have an epic Sunday, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye.